I can't review every new MacBook Pro by just saying, this looks just like the previous generation, but trust me, it is some % faster this round. I mean, you can still definitely say that if you enjoy being a lot of fun at parties next time someone asks about your M5 Max, but there is genuine excitement with this MacBook Pro. There are significant breakthroughs, things which put the M5 Max at a steep advantage versus the M4 Max and even the desktop exclusive Ultra chips. The laptop even looks slightly different this round. If you look at the keyboard, the Tab, Caps Lock, Shift, Delete, and Return keys are now glyphs instead of text. I do like it, I think it looks a bit cleaner, but it's also a very consistent keyboard visual now because these glyphs are what we're used to seeing on our iOS keyboards. But the new MacBook Neo has this as well, so if that's your reason for buying a new MacBook, there are less expensive ways to fulfill your desires. The M5 Max chip is primarily what you're paying for here, and even that is designed quite differently this round. If you go ahead and open the CPU history window in Activity Monitor, you'll see how differently the cores are set up in the M5 family of chips. All this while, we're used to seeing a smaller number of efficiency cores on top of a larger number of performance cores. But here in M5 Max, you've got a whole bunch of performance cores backed by 6 super cores. This is the first time the M-series chips have been made with a new architecture since the M1, something to do with fusing 2 individual dies into a single SoC to form the M5 Pro and M5 Max. Of course, I was curious to see how that translates into actual performance. For reference, the M5 Max in this review is a 16-inch MacBook Pro in the highest 40-core GPU configuration, full 128GB of unified memory, and 4TB of SSD. As usual, synthetic benchmarks only tell a portion of the story, but I thought it was still worth showing how the M5 Max absolutely dominated every Cinebench test category. For use cases here in the real world, I'll start with what hits closest to home, video export times. This is me exporting the almost 11-minute timeline for the Studio Display unboxing I did a few weeks back. It's in UHD 4K 24p exporting to H.264. It's expectedly faster than my M4 Max Mac Studio, but my M2 Ultra did beat the M5 Max, however, only by a tiny margin of 6 seconds. Of course, I also had to see how Cyberpunk 2077 runs on the M5 Max. For the most accurate comparison, the built-in benchmark shows only a minor increase in frame rate when tested on the Ultra preset versus the M4 Max. But the difference becomes a lot more apparent the moment we turn on ray tracing. It's a 22 FPS difference versus the M4 Max with ray tracing on. I suppose this has something to do with the M5 Max running Apple's 3rd generation ray tracing, but it is a very noticeable difference in gameplay when it comes to ray traced Night City. Something else about the GPU within M5 Max is you get a neural accelerator in each GPU core. So if you were to run an LLM locally on this MacBook Pro, which I did try to do because it's my first time experimenting with local LLMs, and turns out the Gemma 4 variant I was running is the very heavy 31 billion parameter version, which takes an immense amount of resources to run, but I ended up with around 23 tokens per second, which is very close to what I got on my M2 Ultra, and that's a machine with 76 GPU cores, almost twice as many as the M5 Max. But even if you're not quite ready to take things offline with ChatGPT or Gemini, there are still things we work on which will feel so much snappier on the M5 Max precisely because those processors are AI powered. I'm talking about things like smooth slow-mo in Final Cut Pro, where it's generating frames to fill in the gap between frames. Compared to all these powerhouse chips which came before, the M5 Max took only about half the time. Final Cut Pro also analyzes footage you import for the visual search feature, which is the thing that lets you search for a clip just by describing it. Again, this would be reliant on AI performance, so to analyze 1 full hour of footage, the M5 Max took care of that in 6 minutes and 32 seconds, but the M3 Max, M4 Max, and M2 Ultra all took more than 7.5 minutes. There is one more trick up this MacBook sleeve. There's actually nothing in here. And it's not directly related to the chip. It's this. On the previous MacBook Pros and Mac Studios, I already felt the SSD speeds of 6,000 to 7,000 megabytes per second were already fast enough to pretty much never be the weakest link. This is now twice as fast, and interestingly, happening at a time where SSDs aren't exactly the easiest things to get a hold of. This is an import of 1,500 raw photos into a Lightroom Classic catalog. I believe how long this takes is not entirely dependent on SSD speeds, because the M2 Ultra, M3 Max, and M4 Max setups I'm testing have equally fast SSDs. But I believe surely for the M5 Max, the much faster storage does seem to give it a considerable boost in import speed. And since we're already here, I also had these 4 machines built smart previews for all 1,500 photos, with, you guessed it, the M5 Max taking the shortest amount of time. There's usually not too strong of a push to upgrade your MacBook Pro if you're just one generation away, but the leap from M4 Max to M5 Max this round does feel like a larger gap than usual. It is kinda weird bringing around a MacBook that's got the sort of performance you'd previously have to sit in front of a desktop for. So that's the MacBook Pro with M5 Max, and I'll see you around.